Did anybody see this coming? This sudden schism between two men who had so much in common?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think the last 5 years of political history of Donald Trump would suggest that this was probably inevitable,
Yeah.
given that both of them harbor political ambitions. Trump clearly has designs on being president again. I think DeSantis is widely assumed to have White House hopes himself. So, as big as the state of Florida is, it's not big enough to contain both men, politically at least. So, not terribly surprising. But those clips were fantastic that you played, Aaron, because they really get to the key issue here, which is I think Trump feels a level of betrayal. He feels like he made Ron DeSantis. You know, folks who don't follow Florida politics super close don't realize this. Ron DeSantis was basically a backbench House member, not terribly well known, running against a very prominent statewide official in Adam Putnam, and he was not going to win that primary unless and until Trump endorsed him. And Trump did do just that, and the rest is history. So I think Trump feels a sense of political ownership over the governor, and the fact that he is not feeling that reciprocity right now in terms of the governor not be willing to say, I won't run for president in 24 if you run the race, I think has stung Trump.
So, it's interesting. DeSantis' State of the State speech just a few days ago in Florida, did check all the boxes, as you know, Jonathan, if you're running for president in 2024 as a Republican. Here's a few clips.
Florida is a free state. Florida is a law and order state. We will not allow law enforcement to be defunded. I've proposed an election integrity unit whose sole focus will be the enforcement of Florida's election laws.
So major GOP donor Dan Eberhard, he's on this show frequently, and I know he told you, quote, he's Trump, but a little smarter, more disciplined and brusque without being too brusque. The thing is, though, which is an interesting thing. But here we are. Recent Reuters poll shows that if Trump and DeSantis both ran, 54% of Republicans backed Trump, 11% for DeSantis. Sure, it's early, but how does DeSantis change that?
I don't know if he does, Aaron. I mean, that's the thing. I think DeSantis is kind of like, to borrow a sort of seasonal metaphor here, kind of like one of those NFL teams that needs some luck to get to the playoffs. He needs other things to happen to get a playoff berth. And I think that probably includes Trump either not running or being, seriously weakened politically a year from now. And I take it that's right now not likely to happen. But I think that's the scenario for DeSantis, is that he needs some help. He needs sort of Trump as the obstacle to get out of the way. But this gets to the heart of the frustration that people like the governor and other folks in his generation politically in the GOP feel, which is, they believe 2024 is eminently winnable and that Joe Biden is politically weakened. But there's real frustration. They won't say it publicly, at least right now, but there is real frustration among that crowd in the GOP that, Trump is still in the way, that he is not ceding the stage. Now, maybe he will, but for now, he obviously is not, and that is causing some tensions here.